Hey, what's up, everyone? Draking back again, here to tell you that you should be watching The Void. So, The Void is a 2016 Canadian horror film written and directed by Stephen Konatsky and Jeremy Gillespie. I'm sorry if I horribly brutalized those names. And basically takes place specified somewhere in the U.S. and essentially kind of takes place over the course of a single night, where pretty much right as the movie kind of starts out, um, you're treated to basically a couple grisly murders. Well, one attempted one, and one just a woman basically being shot and burned alive. So right off the bat, you realize like, huh, okay, so we're just gonna jump right into this. And basically, the gentleman who survives the shooting comes across a police officer who then takes him to a hospital, which is in the process of being kind of moved. They're transitioning to a larger facility. So currently, what's left of this smaller hospital is kind of a bit of a skeleton crew, just kind of the last little bit before it's completely moved over. So they're not really in a position to handle anything major. Certainly not someone dying of like a gunshot wound or anything like that. But officer brings them in, and pretty quickly after that, mayhem kind of ensues. The hospital is kind of surrounded by a group of people in white sheets, not the KKK, but even though that wouldn't be so great either, who have like these kind of strange like triangle like face, black face markings on their hoods, and they've essentially kind of surround the hospital all the while brandishing knives. And from that moment on, things started going awry. People start turning into like grisly monsters. Just people start dying. People start killing each other. The two individuals in the beginning of the film who shot and burned the woman and were after this guy show up, and it basically implied there's more going on here. What we're witnessing, what we're seeing, is not just a bunch of crazies, as it were. Now, from this point on, this is where certain plot points of the story that are kind of meant to be a surprise kind of start setting in, which if I gave to you now would kind of spoil it. But if you are familiar with the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, recently I did a you should be reading on Story Reanimator, one of Lovecraft's more famous piece of works. But also what he's most notable for is kind of the Cthulhu mythology, creating Cthulhu, Dagon, and many other kind of the elder gods and great old ones. And basically this concept that the universe is old and vast and beyond and before us and anything we knew. They were beings of great power that kind of ruled the universe essentially in a realm of kind of trying to phrase it right, but basically their frame of intellect was so vastly superior to ours that they existed in a construct of reality that's kind of beyond really our understanding, that is beyond kind of the very basic notions of life and death as we kind of perceive life and reality as a whole. Sounds a little kind of metaphysical. That's okay. It quite frankly is. Now, while this story is not based on any of Lovecraft's writing specifically, it very much is in keeping with a lot of the themes of this kind of mythology that is created. This kind of idea of like other dimensions, different planes of reality. The boundaries and borders between life and death not being so clear cut, and that our ability to transcend them being something of a transcendence of our own, existence in and of itself. And what this boils down to, this whole story, when you get past the monsters, the gore, so much gore, is it's a story about, weirdly enough, love. And the lengths we'll go to for it. Not just what we'll do for it, but also what we'll not do in the name of it. You have two characters in this film who I'm not going to spoil. I mean, you do see them early on, but you're not going to know that this is what they're going to represent right off the bat. But one represents, completely just transcending any and all boundaries of realities we know it, daring to step into the unknown, perversing the natural world as we see it today for the love of someone, to get someone back. While another character who's essentially given, the opportunity to get the person they love most back, refuse to because it would mean doing what this other individual has done. So one character is prepared and has and does go to any and all lengths to bring back someone they love, even if that person comes back to them in a way that wasn't the way they were before. They themselves have changed themselves in such a way now by going against kind of basically the natural order of just reality itself for this love. Because for them, it doesn't matter, the means in which you employ. The ends essentially just justify the means to them, regardless of what form that takes in the end result. And boy, the form it takes is certainly interesting. But this other character is essentially given the same opportunity and is told that, listen, you can have this person back. No problem. You can have this person back right now. All you have to do is essentially just do what I did. And this person sees this situation and says no, because they know that the person they loved would not want this. And it's more important that, they remain who that person was they loved, that they continue to be the person that person fell in love with. But to perverse themselves in such a way, just for them, would almost be a dishonor to them, dishonor to their memory. And if they somehow could bring them back, would they want to be with you anymore? Would they still see you as you if you kind of, in their eyes, sank to this level of depravity, so to speak, just for them? And to do something that they would deem so unforgivable in their name would in fact just be unforgivable. So they almost put their respect, their honor, and their love for this person that they've lost above what they kind of feel is their own selfish desire to have them back, regardless of what form that takes. Because that's the other issue too, is that they've seen what form that takes in terms of, getting them back. And it's no longer that person as they were. And is it fair to bring them back in such a way that they most likely would not want to come back in that way? If you gave them the option of death or this, they would probably very happily choose death. And when you kind of see what this is, you'll kind of understand and get where they're coming from. So it's, weirdly enough, it's a story about love and what we'll do for it and what we won't do for it, both for the same reasons, for the love of these individuals. Now, like I said, it is a horror story. It is kind of a creature feature of sorts. There's a lot of really kind of grotesque things, very gory. So if you have a weak stomach, just be forewarned. I mean, I've watched a lot of gory movies. Off to the side right here, I have a whole shelf full of, movies, a lot of which, are creature features and some horror films, which, don't shy away from, taking people's insides and putting them outside. Something this film does in spades. So if you do have a weak stomach, I have to kind of forewarn. I always say, let the story take precedence, let the, the filmmaking take center stage, even if it's a kind of movie you don't really, watch, give it a shot. But I understand that as interesting as a story is, if you have a weak stomach, you can't control that. It's just kind of a knee-jerk reaction. It's kind of like you put me on a roller coaster and I start going, I can't help that. It's not by choice. It just is. So if you do have a weak stomach, the whole film isn't just blood and guts. But those scenes that are, there's a lot of it, and it shows it in, gruesome, gritty detail. And furthermore, most everything you see in this film is a practical effect. So very, very little CGI was used. Only a few components here or there, but very minimal amounts of CGI. So a lot of it is in-camera effects. So puppets, animatronics, things like that. So all the blood is real. Well, not real blood, but it's physically there, and it's very tangible. Or sometimes, films will not do CGI blood, and while you can maybe make it look more elaborate, have it spray and splat and all kinds of, grand detail, fashion, it always looks kind of CGI, and because of that, there's a kind of a degree of disconnect with it and the audience. So even if you have a weak stomach, when you see a lot of CGI gore, it tends not to have the same effect. I've noticed with certain people who do tend to shy away from the gruesome stuff, but practical gore in films looks more real, because for better or for worse, even if it's not real gore, it's still physically there on set, in camera, and this film has a lot of that. So again, I normally don't give these kind of disclaimers because I'm just like, hey, it's a good movie, enjoy it. Because this movie can get very heavy with it, be forewarned, maybe, kind of brace yourself for it. Again, there's only really 2 scenes where I'd say it's really, really bad, but it's really, really bad when you see them. So just, even if you have to maybe turn away if you have to, again, you're not going to really lose much story-wise. But again, story-wise, it is a very interesting kind of look into kind of the human perspective, and not only just dealing with these notions of love and how far we'll go and where we'll draw the line, but it's also contemplating our position of the universe, what the universe is. We've kind of tried to, in more recent centuries, understand the universe from a scientific perspective, and we for before that were kind of, interpreting it through our own mythology, our own kind of religious belief systems. But here you're kind of confronted with a fictional version of the truth, which essentially even just basically says that man's understanding of the universe, is basically just this primitive notion that there are things in the universe older, more ancient, more powerful than anything we as human beings could ever conceive. And this is very much in tune with like Lovecraft, this idea of that we as humans don't matter. Nothing we've created matters, that there are beings in this universe that are so vastly superior to us that, exist in realms and dimensions beyond our frame of reality, that we are essentially just, insects on their backs, basically. But where it differs from Lovecraft, where there was really no kind of positivity in any of Lovecraft's work in terms of this kind of thing. There's no silver lining. This story takes kind of these bleak themes of, interdimensional, just, emptiness and just, to the point where, we just don't matter. And it inserts something of a love story. And it makes it about, it actually connects it to kind of the human heart. So you have a lot of these visuals that are straight out of Lovecraft, a lot of these themes that are straight out of Lovecraft, again, especially Cthulhu. But it deals more with like, okay, at the heart of that, we are us. Regardless of if we matter to these beings out there or not, we ourselves are still us. We still live our lives through us. So we still interpret all this through kind of our own frame of reality, no matter how small and insignificant it is. And it is because this story kind of, we see it through the eyes of these characters, not just kind of these broad strokes of kind of, concepts that a lot of Lovecraft's writing is more talks about the concept of what is going on and what is, and really focuses less on the individual characters themselves. This story does that, and because of that, it kind of almost makes these kind of grand concepts more digestible for, I think, people, especially if they're new to these kind of concepts. And also, again, it anchors the story down. It shows you that, the power of love, essentially, that no matter, even when confronted with just kind of the infinite, expanse of the universe and our, pointlessness in it, that is, overridden. It takes, second place to, what matters to us. And at the end of the day, we don't care how pointless we ultimately are. What matters is we feel the way we do, and we're going to do what we have to abide by that feeling. And so again, in this case, love. For some people, it is, I don't care how much I don't matter. This person matters to me. And I'm going to just do whatever I need to do, cross whatever boundaries I need to, break with any kind of rules I need to, perverse any kind of taboo that I have to get this person back, while other people will make the ultimate sacrifice and say, here I've been given this unthinkable opportunity to get back that which I should not be able to get back, and I'm going to turn it down because the price I would have to pay would make it so this person could never truly love me again. So it is a very interesting take on the notion of love, while also, taking ideas from Lovecraft's kind of, mind and putting it in a modern setting and kind of injecting a little heart into it. Because as much as I enjoy Lovecraft, there's not a lot of heart in his writing. Again, it's not really about that, and that's fine. It's not what he's not. He's not that kind of writer. He wasn't that kind of writer. It wasn't what he was set out to do. So, with that said, to see that kind of story mixed with these kind of themes, it's very interesting. And I think it's one of the reasons why this film has kind of garnered so much attention, aside from being visually just, such a, like one of the most kind of shocking looking horror films in a very long time, utilizing a lot of practical effects, and just being very just, intense. There's a very, very human story at the heart of it. So if you're new to horror, you don't really watch horror movies, granted, I know this would be kind of a hard one to start with, just because, again, visually, so much of the visuals do, grab you like that, and they are very shocking. But I think the story that is kind of running throughout the entire film will kind of grip you and give you, as someone maybe who doesn't really watch horror films, something to really latch onto and realize it's not just a slasher flick where you see a bunch of teenagers running through the woods getting cut down by a guy with a machete. This is a story about people and what it means to be human, and ultimately forces you to ask yourself, what would you do to get back, your child, your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mother, your father, someone who just is so dear to you? What would you do? And more importantly, what would you not do? So The Void. Have you seen it? It's I know at the time of this recording, it's on Netflix. It's not a hard movie to get a hold. Like I said, it's it's garner a lot of interest and a lot of praise, so it's kind of everywhere. So you shouldn't have a hard time finding it. But as always, I'll put some links in the description section below where you can check it out. If you have seen it, let me know what you think. A lot of people I've talked to have seen this movie really, really enjoy it, and kind of call it like one of the best horror movies in 5 years or more. And I would be very much inclined to agree. I'm not a big fan of like jump scare horror movies. I like horror movies that have a lot of kind of impending dread and doom that just kind of slowly sets in, and this film does that. So for me, more of a sci-fi guy than a horror guy, but this is the kind of horror that I really enjoy, that I can really latch on to. So I think for a lot of people, that's why they're really enjoying that. If you have not seen it, check it out. Come back, give me some of your thoughts, let me know, because I'd be very, very curious to see what you guys have to think, because obviously if you're not familiar with the genre as much, your opinion of it, I tend to find a bit more fascinating, because again, it's easier for someone like me who's kind of familiar with a lot of these tropes and ideas and concepts to kind of be able to just watch and be like, okay, that's good, it rhymes with that, they check that off the list, that's good, they got that part right. But for a lot of you guys this might be new all around, I think the experience for you guys might be a bit more visceral. So I would be very curious to kind of, get a sense of what your take is on it for it. So, but anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me this week. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace!